Welcome to this deep dive, and this one's just for you. We're going to be diving deep into all those sources you sent over about global AI collaboration.
Okay.
And it's really clear from what you said that you're plugged into how AI is already kind of changing the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I'm really curious about is, this idea of shifting from everyone working in their own little silos to a truly global approach.
Yeah.
What happens when we start bringing the best minds and the most powerful AI systems together from all over the world?
Right.
Is that how we unlock AI's true potential?
It's certainly a fascinating concept to consider. And as you know from the research that you sent over, there's a pretty rich history of global collaboration leading to these huge breakthroughs in science.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, think about CERN, the Human Genome Project, even the International Space Station.
Oh, yeah.
These are all massive undertakings, but they show what's possible when we pool resources and expertise on a global scale.
So we've got the historical precedent that this could work.
Yeah.
But what would it actually look like, in practice, to have this global AI collaboration?
Right.
Well, one thing that the sources mention is this idea of shared data repositories.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break that down for us?
Well, imagine this. Instead of every research team or company hoarding their own data,
Right.
there's this global platform where ethically sourced data is available to everyone.
Okay.
Think about something like ImageNet, which was super important in advancing image recognition, but on a massive scale encompassing everything from medical scans to climate patterns.
Wow.
This kind of shared resource could seriously accelerate AI training, making those models way more accurate and robust.
That's kind of wild to think about, like a worldwide data pool.
Yeah.
And that's not all the sources talk about.
Right.
They also point to this potential for globally coordinated research agendas.
Mm-hmm.
Like imagine teams in Europe, Asia, and the Americas all working together on, predicting and preventing the next pandemic. And what's really striking to me is how this global approach could lead to solutions that are more effective and equitable, considering the needs of different populations all over the world.
Absolutely. I mean, just think about developing AI diagnostic tools.
Yeah.
If those tools are trained only on data from specific regions or groups of people, their accuracy can be really limited when applied to other populations.
Makes sense.
But with globally diverse data, these tools could be so much better at diagnosing conditions across different ethnicities and environments.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, one of the sources highlights this study where an AI was trained on global skin cancer data.
Okay.
And it was significantly better at identifying melanoma in patients with darker skin tones than a model that was only trained on data from people with lighter skin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful example.
Yeah.
I mean, it really gets to the heart of why this matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about efficiency.
Yeah.
It's about fairness.
Right.
And making sure that everyone benefits from AI. And speaking of reaching everyone, the sources really dive into the potential for revolutionizing education.
Yeah, education is a really exciting area.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine these AI-powered tutoring systems that adapt to every student's individual learning style,
Wow.
drawing on a vast library of global knowledge and teaching methods.
Yeah.
So like a student in a rural village in India could have access to the same quality of education as a student at a top-tier school in New York City.
That's the kind of future I want to live in.
Right.
Yeah. And thinking about your own passion for mention the listener's area of interest based on their submitted materials.
Yeah.
I bet you can see how this kind of global AI collaboration could make a huge impact in that field too.
Absolutely. The potential is just immense. I mean,
Right.
just give a specific example tailored to the listener's field and how global AI collaboration could benefit it.
It's amazing to think about.
It is.
Okay, so we've covered healthcare, education, and even touched on your own interests.
Yeah.
But the sources also explore the impact of global AI collaboration on climate change.
Yeah. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
We're talking about AI systems that can integrate data from satellites, weather stations, ocean buoys, countless other sources to create these incredibly detailed climate models.
Okay.
And these models could help us predict extreme weather events, optimize energy grids, even develop new ways to capture and store carbon.
So instead of every country trying to tackle climate change on its own, we could have this global AI network
Right.
working to find the most effective solutions for the whole planet.
Exactly.
The sources even talk about the possibility of AI-powered early warning systems that could predict natural disasters and help us reduce their impact,
Right.
potentially saving tons of lives.
Exactly. And because these models would be trained on global data, they'd be more robust and better equipped to address those unique climate challenges faced by different regions.
So a global solution
Yeah.
for a global problem.
Exactly.
That's a really great point. It's not just about sharing data.
Right.
It's about bringing together different perspectives and expertise
Right. Yeah.
to solve problems that no single nation can tackle alone.
You're absolutely right. And another area where this global perspective is crucial is in economic planning.
Yeah, the sources really get into that,
Yeah.
talking about AI systems that could analyze global trade patterns, supply chains, and resource distribution, all in real time.
Exactly. Imagine an AI that could help us anticipate and prevent supply chain disruptions like the ones we saw during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Or a system that could identify new economic trends and opportunities, helping governments make better decisions about investments and trade policies.
It's like having a global economic crystal ball,
Kind of.
but powered by AI.
Yeah, and this kind of global economic insight could be particularly valuable for developing nations, helping them navigate that complex global marketplace and achieve sustainable growth.
It's so important to make sure that the benefits of this are shared equitably. We don't want to create a system that only benefits wealthy nations.
Right.
But that brings up the question of resources.
Yeah.
Many countries, especially in the developing world, just don't have the resources to participate fully in a global AI ecosystem.
Right.
So how do we make sure everyone has a seat at the table?
That's a really important challenge.
Yeah.
And the sources acknowledge that bridging this gap is essential for equitable collaboration.
Yeah.
You know, we need to see more investment in AI education and infrastructure in developing nations and initiatives to promote knowledge sharing and technology transfer.
So it's not just about building the technology itself. It's about building the capacity for all nations to participate and benefit from this global AI revolution.
Exactly. And beyond just resources, we need to think about the potential for misuse.
Okay.
Global collaboration also needs to focus on establishing some strong ethical frameworks and safeguards
Yeah.
to ensure that AI is used responsibly and for the benefit of all.
It's about responsible development, not just rapid development.
Absolutely.
And that's where things get really tricky, right?
Mhm.
Because different countries have different values, different priorities, and different ideas about what ethical AI development even means.
Right.
So how do we build a global consensus on something as complex as AI ethics?
That's a question we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But before we get there, let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the incredible potential of global AI collaboration in scientific research.
Okay, let's do it. I'm ready to have my mind blown.
All right. From mapping the human brain to figuring out dark matter, the potential for AI to speed up scientific discoveries is huge.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
But as you pointed out in your research, even within science, there are concerns about, who owns the data intellectual property rights and the potential for AI to actually make those existing inequalities in research funding and access even worse.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
We can't just assume that if we throw AI at every scientific problem, it'll magically lead to breakthroughs.
Right.
We also need to think about how this tech is going to impact the research process itself and who benefits from these discoveries. The sources mention the Human Genome Project as like a success story of international science collaboration.
Right.
But they also pointed out that even that project had its issues,
Yeah.
especially around data ownership and access.
Exactly. And those same issues become even bigger when we're talking about global AI collaboration.
Yeah.
The stakes are higher, the data sets are larger and more complex, and there's more potential for both collaboration and conflict.
Right.
One source actually quotes a leading AI ethicist
Okay.
who says that global AI collaboration isn't just a technical challenge, it's a social and political challenge. It requires us to rethink how we govern data, how we share knowledge, and how we ensure that the benefits of AI are distributed fairly.
So it's not just about building the tech.
Right.
It's about building the trust and the governance to make sure it's used responsibly.
Yeah.
But how do we even start to build that kind of trust globally?
Right.
Especially when you consider all the geopolitical tensions and rivalries between countries.
That's the million-dollar question. And the sources offer some interesting ideas on how we might approach this.
Okay.
One idea that keeps coming up is this need for a multi-stakeholder approach to AI governance.
So instead of just leaving it up to governments or tech companies,
Yeah.
we need a more inclusive process that involves researchers, ethicists, civil society organizations, and even everyday citizens.
Exactly. The sources argue that we need a global conversation about AI that goes beyond national borders and ideological differences.
Okay.
And this conversation should focus on finding those shared values and principles for responsible AI development and setting up clear mechanisms for accountability and oversight.
It's like we need a global AI constitution,
Yeah.
a set of guidelines that everyone can agree on.
Right.
But that sounds incredibly ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do we even get all those different voices and perspectives in the same room,
Right.
let alone get them to agree on something as complex as AI ethics?
It's a big task for sure.
Yeah.
But the sources point to some encouraging examples of international cooperation on AI ethics.
Okay, like what?
Well, for instance, the OECD has already developed a set of AI principles that over 40 countries have adopted.
Oh,
And the European Union is working on a big regulatory framework for AI that aims to balance innovation with ethical considerations.
so there is some movement in the right direction.
Exactly. These initiatives show that there's a growing understanding that we need global cooperation on AI ethics.
Okay.
And as AI keeps developing, the push for stronger governance is only going to get stronger.
Okay, so let's be realistic.
Uh-huh.
Even if we do manage to overcome these political and ethical challenges, just building a global AI system is a massive technical undertaking.
Right.
What kind of infrastructure would we even need to support this level of global collaboration?
We'd need these really robust data sharing platforms that are secure, interoperable, and accessible to researchers all over the world.
Yeah.
We'd also need to come up with common standards and protocols for AI development so that systems created in different countries can talk to each other.
So it's like building the internet, but for AI.
In some ways, yeah. And just like the internet, it'll require a global effort with governments, private companies, and research institutions all working together.
And we can't forget about the people.
Right.
We'll need to train a whole new generation of AI researchers and engineers
Yeah.
who can work in this globalized environment. People who understand not only the technical stuff,
Yeah,
but also the ethical, social, and cultural implications of this tech.
absolutely. Education is key.
Yeah.
We need to foster this culture of responsible AI development that puts collaboration, transparency, and using AI for the good of humanity front and center.
That's a really powerful vision.
It is.
But it also raises an important question. Who gets to decide what the benefit of all humanity actually means?
Right.
How do we ensure that this global AI system doesn't just end up serving the interests of the most powerful countries or corporations?
That's a really important point, and the sources spend a lot of time wrestling with that.
Yeah.
One solution they bring up is creating a global AI fund, similar to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria.
So instead of relying just on national governments or private donations, we could have this dedicated pool of resources
Right.
that supports AI research and development projects that align with global priorities,
Yeah.
like tackling climate change, promoting sustainable development, or improving public health.
Exactly. And this fund could be governed by a diverse and representative board with experts from different countries, disciplines, and sectors.
That's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
It could help to ensure that AI is developed and deployed with a broader set of values and priorities in mind.
Right. It's about shifting from competition to collaboration, from short-term gains to long-term sustainability.
Okay, so we've talked about governance, infrastructure, and funding.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece we haven't really touched on yet, public perception.
Right.
How do we get people on board with this idea of global AI collaboration?
Mm-hmm.
How do we address their fears and concerns about this really powerful tech?
That's a crucial question. And the sources stress the need for clear and open communication about AI. We need to demystify it, explain how it works, what its potential benefits are, and how we're working to reduce the risks.
So it's about education, but it's also about engagement.
Yeah.
We need to involve the public in the conversation, get their input, address their concerns, and make sure this technology is developed in a way that reflects their values and hopes for the future.
Absolutely. It's about building trust, not just between countries, but between the people creating AI and the people whose lives it will affect.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah,
Trust seems to be the foundation for everything we've talked about.
it really is.
Trust between nations, trust between researchers, and the public trust in the technology itself.
Yeah.
But building trust takes time,
It does.
and the field of AI is moving so fast.
Right.
How do we ensure that our governance and ethical frameworks can keep up with this rapid technological evolution?
That's a question we're going to explore in the last part of our deep dive. But before we move on, I want to emphasize that while the challenges are real, so are the potential benefits of global AI collaboration.
Okay.
Imagine a world where AI is predicting and preventing famines, developing new cures for diseases, powering personalized learning for every kid on the planet. That's the kind of future we could build if we choose to work together.
Okay, so we've covered so much in this deep dive. It's clear that global AI collaboration could totally change our world.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Revolutionizing healthcare and education, tackling climate change, boosting scientific discovery.
It's huge.
But we've also talked about how it's not going to be easy.
Right.
There are some serious challenges around data governance, ethical alignment, and just building trust on a global scale.
Absolutely. And as you pointed out in your research, one of the biggest challenges is making sure that this global AI system doesn't just make existing inequalities even worse.
Right.
We really need to be careful and build a system that helps everyone, not just a select few.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in all the amazing potential, but we can't forget about the risks.
No, we can't.
One of the sources you sent actually compared it to the early days of the internet.
Oh, yeah.
There was so much optimism about democratizing information and connecting the world, but we've also seen how it can be used for bad things.
Yeah.
Like surveillance, misinformation, and even like eroding our privacy.
It's a really good comparison. It shows just how important it is to learn from our past mistakes.
Right.
We got to be proactive in figuring out and mitigating the potential downsides of global AI collaboration.
Okay, so being proactive,
Yeah.
that sounds great, but how do we actually do that?
Well, the sources highlight a few key areas to focus on.
Okay.
First, we really need to invest in strong and adaptable governance mechanisms.
Okay, so what does that look like?
It means creating international agreements and standards for how AI is developed and used, and also setting up clear lines of accountability and oversight.
So it's not just about writing up ethical guidelines.
No.
It's about having rules and regulations to make sure those guidelines are actually followed.
Right.
But like we've talked about, getting different countries with different values and priorities to agree on global AI regulations is a huge task.
It is.
Is that even realistic?
It's definitely a challenge, but the sources suggest focusing on things everyone agrees on.
Okay.
For example, most countries are worried about AI being used in autonomous weapons systems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that could be a starting point for working together.
Right.
Maybe leading to treaties that ban or restrict these weapons.
Okay, so start with the issues where everyone's already kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
And then build from there.
Yeah. But beyond government regulations, the sources also emphasize industry self-regulation and ethical design practices.
Okay, so you're saying tech companies and AI developers need to step up too.
They do. They have a responsibility to make sure the systems they create are aligned with human values and used to benefit society.
So how do they actually do that?
It means thinking about ethics at every stage of development, from data collection and training models to how they're used and monitored.
So it's more than just like a code of ethics on their website.
Right.
It's about building ethical principles into how these systems work.
Exactly. And one way to do that is through something called value-sensitive design.
Okay, I've heard of that, but can you remind me what that is?
Sure. It means thinking about the values and interests of everyone involved throughout the whole design process and using those values to guide how the AI system is developed.
Okay, so like if you're building an AI for healthcare, you need to make sure it prioritizes things like patient privacy and well-being.
Exactly, not just making money for the healthcare provider.
Right. And it's important to remember that these values can be different in different cultures.
Yeah, definitely. So we need to be sensitive to those differences and make sure our AI systems respect the values of the people they're meant to serve.
This is where it gets really complicated.
It does.
It's not just about coming up with one set of ethical guidelines for everyone. It's about creating AI that is adaptable and understands different cultures.
You got it. And that's where social scientists, ethicists, even artists and philosophers can play a huge role.
Okay, I like that.
We need lots of different perspectives to help us figure out how AI might impact society and then design systems that match our shared human values.
It's like we need a whole new area of study.
We might.
AI ethics and design.
Yeah, and we need to train people who can bridge the gap between the tech world and the world of human values and social systems. And that's starting to happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're seeing new research centers and academic programs popping up.
That's good.
Focused on AI ethics and more collaboration between tech companies and humanities scholars.
It sounds like we're finally starting to understand the whole picture of AI.
Yeah.
The challenges and the opportunities.
It feels like we're always playing catch up, though.
I know.
AI is developing so quickly.
Yeah. How do we make sure our ethical frameworks and governance can keep up?
That's a really tough question, and honestly, the sources don't have a clear answer.
Oh, wow.
But one thing they keep saying is that we need to keep talking and working together.
Yeah.
We need ways to keep learning and adapting, where ethicists, policymakers, researchers, and industry leaders are all talking, sharing what they know, and improving our approach to AI governance.
So it's not about setting rules and then just forgetting about it?
No, it's about creating a system that can change and adapt as the technology changes.
And it's also about understanding that this is a global challenge that needs global solutions.
Absolutely. We got to break down those walls between countries, between different areas of study, and between the tech world and the social world.
It's a lot.
It is. But only by working together can we really use the power of AI to help everyone.
You've given us so much to think about in this deep dive.
I hope so.
It's clear that global AI collaboration could have a huge impact on our future. And it's not just about the tech itself.
Right.
It's about how we develop it, how we govern it, and how we make sure it's used ethically.
Exactly. And as we wrap up, I keep thinking about how the future of AI isn't set in stone. We're shaping it right now with our choices, our actions, and our willingness to have these tough conversations.
I agree with you there. And as you continue your work and your involvement with AI, keep asking these tough questions, challenge those assumptions, and be a voice for responsible and inclusive AI development.
It's in our hands. Let's make sure we create a future we can all be proud of.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
We hope it was insightful and thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here.
It doesn't.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing for a better AI future for all of us.